Indiana on hold there, but then that is a technical.
That is a technical. Dead ball, contact technical.
It's a little surprising to see so many of these happen in one game because...
Oh, and I don't like the way Lexie Hull...
Remember when the Indiana Fever last faced off with the Minnesota Lynx? Well, Lexie Hull just got the sweetest payback on Kayla McBride. The last time these two matched up, McBride's elbow caught Hull right in the face, and somehow the officials still called the foul on Hull. But this time, in Indiana's dominant win over Minnesota, Hull flipped the script. She delivered a statement play that had the entire arena buzzing. This wasn't just a highlight for the real, it was personal, it was redemption, and it showed the kind of toughness that defines the Fever right now. This moment sums up exactly why Indiana is making such a strong late-season push toward the playoffs. Drop some love for Lexie in the comments, she's earned it. Let's go.
Final score, Fever 83, Lynx 72. Indiana ends the regular season with an exclamation point. Fever have won 3 in a row as they enter the playoff.
How does any team keep its season alive when nearly half the lineup disappears? The Indiana Fever were forced to find out the hard way. One after another, their rotation was gutted by injuries. Caitlin Clark went down with a groin issue. Sophie Cunningham tore her MCL. Sydney Colson suffered an ACL tear. Kayla Beebe's knee couldn't hold up. And Ari McDonald broke her foot. That list alone looks like a starting 5, yet every single one of them ended up stuck on the sidelines in street clothes. Pile those setbacks together, and suddenly the Fever were staring at one of the thinnest rosters in the league. No amount of offseason preparation could have braced Indiana for that kind of disaster.
But I think they're really good without her. You know, they're just a really great basketball team. So I think it was a big win for us because they set the bar high standard-wise. We know what to expect when it comes to Minnesota Lynx, and so I think going into the playoffs, it was big for us because being able to know guarding Courtney Williams, knowing that her thing is a pull-up, knowing that now instead of not knowing that, it's big for us because we give ourselves a chance.
And then came the news nobody wanted to hear. Caitlin Clark's season was officially done. What started as a minor groin issue had turned into a permanent entry on the injury report. This was supposed to be the rookie year that catapulted the Fever back into the national spotlight. Instead, it ended not with a playoff debut, but with a statement from the medical staff. For a team already leaning on her fire to carry them through rough patches, the blow was crushing. The impact wasn't just felt in the locker room, it rippled all the way from Indiana to Iowa. Clark wasn't just filling seats, she was the engine driving the season. And losing her felt like the clearest signal yet that the Fever's playoff dreams could fade just as fast as they appeared.
Guys, since even the offseason, really the ones that I was able to work out with in the offseason is how hard they work. There's a work ethic and there's a work style. And to approach everything in the same way, to be so energetic, enthusiastic, and dedicated every day, and I felt that way in training camp too. There weren't any days where I had to bring that out of them. So I think it's the nature of the women that we brought into this organization to continue to just bust their butts and play hard.
With Caitlin Clark sidelined, someone had to fill the gap, and Kelsey Mitchell rose to the challenge. She didn't just pick up a little extra scoring load, she became the centerpiece of the entire offense. Mitchell rewrote the Fever's record books, passing even Tamika Catchings for the most productive scoring season in franchise history. Night after night, she poured in over 20 points per game, all while juggling ball handling duties, fighting through double teams, and carrying every scouting report with her name bolded at the top. She became the offensive lifeline that kept Indiana's season alive when it easily could have flatlined.
Kind of all the other things like offensive rebounding that she can do.
Knocked away, Boston comes up with a steal. Here is Mitchell veering through the paint and lays it in.
She's so quick, and especially when she gets out in the open floor, you'll see her coming down. The quick left to right crossover just gets by. I thought she was sprinting. I didn't think she was lumbering.
It was a lumber
sprint. Up for the big girl.
Aaliyah Boston carried the other half of that load. Night in and night out, she delivered around 15 points and more than 8 boards over her last 10 games. That's not just effort, that's consistency. In a season wrecked by injuries, Boston became Indiana's anchor. She battled with bigger forwards, dominated the glass, and extended possessions when the offense desperately needed a reset. No matter how messy the lineups got, she was the steady presence in the paint. Her work on the boards even set a new single-season record for the franchise. And that kind of dependability was the reason the Fever's defense never completely unraveled.
8 teams have ever done that. 7 of them went on to win the title. As Boston gets free and lays it in.
She will be on my first team.
Boston in the paint, sneaks through 2 and lays it in.
So ask yourself, after everything they went through, could this team really still dream about the playoffs? Logically, the answer should have been no, but that's not how their story unfolded. Instead of breaking down, they turned every obstacle into fuel. The injuries, the constant lineup shuffles, even the officiating, it all became motivation. Players once seen as depth pieces stepped into the spotlight and delivered night after night. Emergency signings chipped in with double-digit scoring. Bench players embraced bigger roles and played with pride. What should have ended their season actually sparked their fight.
You're done with the MVP, okay? Bow, bow, bow! Hell yeah. You already know what it is. Dubs in the chat, you already know what it is. You already know what it is. Let's go to the playoffs with some momentum, baby.
The turning point was obvious. The Fever stopped viewing their injuries as a death sentence and instead used them as a rallying cry. That shift in mindset completely changed the way they played and the way fans connected with them. So when the Minnesota Lynx came into the picture, it wasn't about who was missing anymore. The real story was resilience, and it set the stage for one of the most emotional victories of the season. Why did that win over Minnesota feel so different? Because it meant everything. Indiana wasn't just running out the clock, they were staring down a powerhouse that had been the league's measuring stick all year. This wasn't just pride on the line, it was survival in the playoff race. And the Fever didn't flinch. They entered the game already locked into the postseason, but the chance to climb the ladder was real. With a win and a little help elsewhere, they could fight their way into the 6th seed. To the casual fan, that might not sound like much, but in the playoffs, every step higher matters. A better seed means friendlier matchups, a louder chance to make noise, and the proof that Indiana belonged at the grown-ups table.
Before the playoffs start Sunday tonight, it's regular season game 44 of 44 for the Fever as they host the WNBA's best team in 2025, the Minnesota Lynx.
What makes this stretch even more powerful is where the Fever were just a few weeks earlier. They had dropped 4 of their last 5. Momentum had vanished, fan excitement was cooling, and the national conversation shifted back to one question. Had Caitlin Clark's absence completely derailed their progress? Most teams in that position crumble. But Indiana didn't. Instead, they flipped the switch and fought their way through 3 straight grinded-out wins. Each victory showed a roster reshaping its identity on the fly. And the third one? That came against Minnesota, a matchup that carried weight because it was the kind of game almost nobody believed the Fever could win at this stage of the season.
Alana Smith jumping it up against Aaliyah Boston. The ball is tipped, and it's time to hoop at Indy.
A 10-0 run to start this game for Indiana, and Minnesota wants a timeout.
Powers up top, tees it up, 3, it's good! Energy!
Kicks it out, Powers, you bet! Back-to-back threes from Aerial Powers.
The Fever double up the Lynx in the first quarter. It's Indiana 28, Minnesota 14.
It was the way Indiana took control of that game that silenced all the doubts. From the very first possession, the Fever looked organized, confident, and ready to impose their style. A 10-0 burst in the opening quarter sent the message loud and clear. They weren't there to survive, they were there to dictate. By halftime, the lead had stretched into double digits, and Indiana never once looked like they might give it back. Minnesota tried to spark a comeback, but between cold shooting and relentless defensive pressure, every possession turned into a dead end. The Lynx went just 2 for 2-0 from beyond the arc, and with every miss, the feeling grew stronger this game belonged to Indiana.
Indiana is 4 for 4 from three-point range. Mitchell connects on a 3. Sims leaning jumper is good.
Kelsey driving left, puts it in off the backboard.
Will to it. for the first half. Indiana shoots 58% from the floor.
A big part of the story came from unexpected contributors. Odyssey Sims, signed recently on a hardship contract, poured in 15 points. That wasn't just filling minutes, that was a veteran stepping in and showing she still belongs on this stage. And then came aerial powers. With Minnesota threatening to cut into the lead in the second half, she drilled back-to-back threes that completely flipped the momentum back to Indiana's side. It wasn't just 6 points, it was the knockout blow that told the Lynx, this night isn't yours.
Mitchell, open three. It's good. Lexie Mitchell is a hooper.
Passes Dantas left corner three. Bullseye. Shot clock.
Natasha Howard deserves just as much credit for that dominance as anyone on the floor. Every stretch she played, her impact was felt crashing the boards, switching seamlessly on defense, knocking down shots when possessions broke down. She filled all the holes that open up when half the roster is unavailable. And then there was Indiana's bench. The same group that had been written off earlier in the season became the glue holding everything together. Instead of being intimidated by Minnesota's reputation, they looked like the deeper, stronger team. The numbers back it up. Indiana now sits at 24-20, their first winning record since 2015. 9 long years of false starts, rebuilds that never stuck, and missed chances finally turning the corner. That milestone isn't about settling for good enough, it's proof that a cultural shift has taken root. The players feel it, the coaching staff sees it, and the fans who've been packing the stands in Indianapolis all season know it too. And even in street clothes, Caitlin Clark was still in the middle of it all. At one point, cameras caught her waving her arms for a timeout like a coach on the sideline. She was calling out coverages, directing teammates, even sharing a laugh with the refs. Her teammates kept looking her way, and it was clear her influence didn't fade just because she wasn't in uniform. Coach Clark might not be an official title, but on that night, she could have passed for someone wearing a polo on the bench.
With the MVP, okay? Bow, bow, bow! Hell yeah. You already know what it is. Dubs in the chain, you already know what it is. Ooh! You already know what it is. Let's call them playoff with some momentum, baby.
So, was this win some kind of fluke? Not at all. It was a statement controlled, deliberate by a team that isn't just hanging on anymore, but proving it belongs in the playoff conversation even without its biggest star. And while the collective effort stood out, the moment everyone kept talking about afterward wasn't just the victory, it was one player's redemption. That belonged to Lexie Hull. Her battle with Kayla McBride quickly became one of the night's defining storylines. Because what's better than a team proving doubters wrong? Watching a player finally get the personal payback fans had been waiting for. For Hull, that moment arrived the second she checked in against Minnesota. Not long ago, she was on the wrong end of McBride's elbow blood on the floor, chaos in the arena, and then the shocking twist. The officials hit Hull with the technical instead of penalizing McBride. What should have been a tough night turned into something outrageous. Fans weren't just upset for her, they felt disrespected. It only fueled the narrative that Indiana never seems to get the benefit of the doubt.
Here's Mitchell, I think that's a 2. Doesn't go. And now it's McBride getting Hull. Yeah, that one might be a problem. Indiana just taking shots to the face.
So when Indiana matched up with Minnesota again, all eyes immediately shifted to Lexie Hull. Every Fever fan wanted to see how she'd respond. Would she back off guarding McBride? Would that ugly moment still linger over her? Or would she turn it into a statement that spoke louder than words? The need for payback hung in the air before the ball was even tipped. This wasn't just another game, it was a test of character.
Tonight for Indiana, but then Carlton gives it right back, and Howard cashes in.
To perform like this, but they have 5 different players almost at all times who can bring the ball up the floor. Usually 4 or 5 were adept at making shots from deep. I mean, you just saw a big there creating her own look as well from Natasha Howard. Career high in terms of her field goal percentage, and you see her here, the little spin to the middle. That's a tough shot.
Hull's role had already skyrocketed thanks to the roster shakeups. With Sophie Cunningham sidelined, she suddenly became the Fever's only reliable wing. That meant more minutes, more shots, and almost no room for mistakes. Against Minnesota the last time, she logged nearly 40 minutes and dropped 23 points, her best outing yet in an Indiana jersey. She no longer looked like a temporary plug-in, she looked like a cornerstone. And that confidence poured out in every drive, every jumper, every defensive stop. She'd built all the momentum she needed before this stage even arrived.
The Minnesota team is on the cusp of blocking all season long. Now, one thing to know. Vegas, one thing to know. Vegas currently is a 3, but if they win out, they will be the 6.
The moment arrived in the second quarter, when Hull found herself squared up against McBride at the top of the arc. One sharp dribble to her left, a quick hesitation, McBride bit, lunged, and lost her footing. Her balance gave out, her legs tangled, and the cameras caught what the entire arena instantly recognized. Kayla McBride had just been crossed and left looking like her ankles paid the price. The building erupted. Within minutes, the clip spread across social media like wildfire. Indiana fans called it karma. Neutral fans couldn't stop laughing. For Hull, it was just another play. But for everyone watching, it was something much bigger. Her teammates jumped off the bench, the crowd leaned in, knowing they had just witnessed payback live. That crossover wasn't just a bucket, it was justice delivered in real time. What a few weeks earlier had been outrage over a technical call now had its counterpunt. Instead of being remembered as the victim, Hull flipped the entire story, humiliating the same player who once left her bloodied.
She was messy, and she's on your team, you love her, and if she's on the other team, she's just annoying. Right? You just gets in and try to rip the ball out of Smith's hands and just end the effort.
But Hull's night wasn't defined by one flashy crossover. From start to finish, her defense set the tone. She hounded Minnesota's guards, stayed in their airspace, tipped passes, and forced them into bad shots. The box score can't always measure that grind, but anyone watching could see she suffocated their rhythm. Possession after possession turned into wasted trips, and suddenly the league's top team looked out of sync, putting up one of their worst offensive games of the season. That mattered just as much as the viral moment, and that's why Hull's performance hits so hard. Her story mirrors Indiana's, counted out, overlooked, and hit with brutal calls, yet still refusing to fold. Just like Hull, the Fever don't fade into the background when the pressure builds. They fight harder. That crossover against McBride was more than a highlight, it was a symbol. A reminder of how this team clawed through injuries, bad whistles, and non-stop doubt to deliver their first winning season in nearly a decade. And now the Fever roll into the playoffs with momentum, a city buzzing, and the anticipation of Caitlin Clark's return making the future even brighter. This is when support matters most. Keep bringing that energy, keep fueling the rise, because this is no fluke. This feels like the true beginning of Indiana's climb back to relevance. So let's give Lexie her flowers in the comments below. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss what's coming. Click the video on screen, and we'll see you in the next one.